This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 317.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. I am your host, Ramsey Majaba, and I'm a solution specialist out of Ottawa, Canada, in case you didn't know that. And solution specialist is just another word for glorified AE. It's a little bit different, but the role that I'm doing is that. So I've been doing it for a few years, since 2021. That's a while. And I've worked with several SEs since then, whether as a salesperson or solution specialist, whether as a mentor or as a coach. And we love to make jokes about salespeople. I mean, it's fun, and a lot of it is earned. And the fact of the matter is, when I first became an SE, my first week I had to travel to a SE training or a quarterly training that my SE manager at the time, had organized for both SEs and sales. We had a common training in the same room. It was more marketing slides. And when the session was over, they wanted to split us up. Like, SEs stay in this room, salespeople go to the other room, and you do salesperson stuff and we do SE stuff. And my SE manager stood up and basically said, SEs stays here, and those who have a lobotomy go to the other room. And I thought that was interesting. I mean, it was funny. It was a joke. Everyone laughed. But that's how I was introduced to working with salespeople. Salespeople are dumb. Salespeople, I'm not saying that's but that's the feeling you get when people talk about salespeople. They're dumb. They don't know what they're doing. They're just bumbling idiots. In some cases it's true, but a lot of cases, it's just what people say. Now, since I've switched into sales, there are things that SEs do that drive me nuts. In the last couple of weeks, I've seen things that have made me angry. I guess I can say that, to be politically correct. And I can see why salespeople don't want to bring SEs into meetings. And because when they do that, now they have the negative effect of being control freaks and whatnot. So I'm going to talk about the 12 things that SEs do or in this case, 10 things that SEs do that drive salespeople crazy. And if you're doing that as an SE, please stop it. So these are 10 things, and a lot of it are they're just bad SE work, which unfortunately people still do. And some of it is just annoyances. So let's talk about that. We'll start with, obviously, number one, not following up on time. And I know this sometimes drives SEs crazy about their AEs, especially when they're paired one-to-one, when AEs don't follow up with customers on time. The inverse is true. So what do I mean by that? Customer asks a question, whether it's through email or in person. And it is agreed upon that the SE owns that. Right? They're the ones who are supposed to respond to this question. They're supposed to get an answer. Now, sometimes the answer is obvious. The SE already knows and responds right away. But sometimes it's not, and the SE has to do some research. The salesperson does not want to follow up with the SE. They want to trust the SE that when you have that task, the SE is going to take care of it. I don't have to worry about it. It's done. Right? And that's what good SEs do. But a lot of SEs don't. Not because they're not working on it or not because they forgot it. Sometimes they do. But a lot of times it's because I have to find the answers as an SE. So I need to either do my due diligence, try it out in my environment, in my lab, or ask a PM about something. And then we never hear back. Right? The PM that we're responding to just does not answer in time, or our experiment, sometimes the configuration takes longer than the actual experiment. So it just takes time. And we never let the customer know where we're at. So now If the customer sends a follow-up email, that's bad for the sales team. So the AE has to stay on top of it, and now they have to remind the SE to respond to that email. And even if they don't have an answer, it's like, hey, just remind the customer that you're working on it, right? Don't say anything negative. Don't say PM is not responding to me on time. It's just taking longer than expected. I will get back to you as soon as I have. I did not forget about this. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. This is something that annoys AEs because AEs already have so many things that they have to take care of. Like, I work in hardware. I have to take care of equipment shipments, right? Nobody wants to do that. Nobody went into their career thinking, you know what? My dream career is to remember when each particular piece of equipment that my customer bought, I need to track that. I need to ship that. That's not the fun part of being a salesperson or a solution specialist. So I have to deal with that. I also have to deal with forecasting. I also have to deal with my boss is breathing down my neck. I don't want to have to deal with reminding my my SE to do something that they're supposed to be doing anyways. So if you're doing that, just make sure that the AE is aware of what's happening and the customer is aware that you're working on it. Now, the second one on the list here is hijacking a call. And this is what happened to me. This is the main reason I created this podcast, because this happened to me recently. Okay. So here's the story of my situation. I'm working with a customer. We're talking about meeting. We're talking about solving their problem. So they sent out a meeting invite. They sent it out. And they said, we want to talk about X, Y, and Z. Okay. We already had the first meeting. This is the second meeting. We want to talk about that. So the agenda is already set. We know what they want. We know what we're going to be there to discuss. And our job as a sales team is to help the customer. We're not there to be doing monologues. And when the SE jumped on the call, if they don't know what the purpose of the call is, they need to clarify it before with the AE. And if there's no agenda, they're saying no agenda, no attenda. So if you don't know what the purpose of the call is as an SE, don't make sure you know it. Make sure there's an agenda before you join. And if there's an agenda set by the AE or the customer, and the SE does not question it, that means the SE agreed to the agenda of the call. But what happened to me last week was, it's a 30-minute call. The agenda was set by the customer, and the SE jumps on, and before anyone can say anything, no hellos, no nothing, and says, oh, before we jump into what you guys wanted to talk about, I wanted to present to you X because you mentioned this little thing last time, and I want to show you how we solve it. And goes on to taking 10 minutes of the call. And I was messaging in the meantime, like, hey, man, like, we don't even know if the customer cares about what you're talking about. You can hear the customer getting antsy. And now my responsibility is to jump in and figure out a way to interrupt the SE without being rude and showing that we're on the same page, which we're not. So, and the thing is, I understand, like, the SE may have some concerns. They said this, and now I'm worried about that. So I have to let them know, or I have to let them know about this thing, or, hey, we can solve that problem that they briefly mentioned. But basically what happens is, on that call, the SE pisses off the customer, pisses off the AE, and it's a 30-minute call. 10 minutes are gone. And instead of solving the customer's problem on that call, now we have to schedule another call, or we might have lost the deal. We didn't lose the deal. We turned the call around. It was very good. But it was a lot of work on my end, where I had to come in and remind the customer, hey, like, this is what you said last time. This is what we heard. This is the problems that you're trying to solve. Yes. All right, let's move on from here. So that's, as an SE, don't hijack the call. Number 3, don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't say negative things about the product. No product is perfect, but you don't need to say negative things about your product. You don't need to start talking about your weaknesses, especially if the weaknesses have nothing to do with what the customer is looking for. No product is perfect. Not yours, and not your competitors. The best companies in the world don't have a perfect product. If they did, you wouldn't need support. There's a reason we have customer support, is because things go wrong. So if you think that your product is horrible and you can't sell with good conscience, then find another company. But the thing about sales engineering is we see a lot of the bad things too. Or we see, like, not too, we see a lot of the bad things. For example, if customer A sees that, hey, your application is slow to load. Customer B sees the product, they use it differently, and they saw some bugs. Now, in our mind, like, oh, our product is slow to load and it has some bugs, and whatever customer C thought, and then when we go talk to customer X, we list all the problems that we have. Like, we're not doing them a service. They might not see any of these issues. Their problems might be different, and we might be able to solve that problem. So don't shoot yourself in the foot. Number 4, opening the kimono. This is a problem that I did, that I used to do, and the senior VP of sales had to educate me because no one else did. Where the customer says, like, hey, we're looking to buy this. It's like, cool. In the future, we're looking to buy that. And in my head, it's like, oh my God, my PM said that in the future we're going to have something that solves this and that in the same product, same SKU. It'll be cheaper to the customer and it'll be helpful. So I go tell the customer, oh yeah, we're thinking like in a couple of years we'll have a solution that does both. So what did I do right now? I just asked the customer if he'd like to wait till we have that. And again, that did not service the customer, because you never know if in 2 years we'll actually have whatever product that the PM said that we're going to have. We never know what's going to be deprioritized. The business needs may change. So if the customer waits, they're not solving their problems today, and they're not solving their problems in 2 years. This means you negatively affected your customer and your AE who couldn't close the deal, and that means his performance is affected because of your actions. So don't open up the kimono. Number 5, being too pushy. That's the AE's job, by the way. And you don't hear about a lot of SEs being pushy, but I've talked to a few AE friends of mine. You don't hear about SEs being pushy, but I've talked to a few AE friends of mine, and they tell me a story about their SE walking up to the customer saying, "Yeah, we've been working on this forever. Are you going to buy it or what?" Right. That drives AEs crazy, mainly because now the SE's selling, pushing. That's not selling, that's pushing. And when AEs need SEs to be the credible person, AEs want to have the credibility, but the way they get credibility sometimes is by having a credible SE who like kind of shares their credibility with their AE, right? Like when the SE says something that say, "Oh, we can't solve this," the AE doesn't jump in and try to change their SE's mind. That gets credibility both ways. But when the SE is pushing to sell, or getting pissed off that I've been working on this forever, why aren't you buying it? The SE is no longer a technical resource, and they're not trustworthy in the customer's eyes. And if the AE is more trustworthy than the SE in the customer's eyes, that can be a problem. For where I'm at, I have an SE that I work with quite a bit. He's tied to me one-to-one. He's not the SE I was talking about earlier. But the way we work is he has credibility and I have credibility. Between the both of us, we have credibility. But also talking to my customers, sometimes they're okay with the AE. They know what the AE wants. They know that the AE wants to close the deal. So they understand what their motivation is. But they need someone to trust, someone to turn to and say, does this actually do what the AE is saying it will do? And if the SE is pushing and being push-E, then they don't have anyone. And most people would like to buy from people they like. So if they don't like the SE, they don't like the AE, then they have every reason not to like the product, even if the product solves the problem. If they have to, if there's no other choice, they will buy it. But if there is a choice, they will not. Number 6, doing things without informing the AE. So going back to the example I had earlier about hijacking the call. So the customer invited us to the call. And then my SE, or the SE that I was working with, invited a specialist. The AE didn't know anything about that. The SE agreed with the specialist that they will present at the beginning of the call. So they hijacked the call. The AE didn't know anything about that. And for those listening, I'm pointing at myself as the AE. So what happens is that now the AE lost control of the deal, or lost control of the meeting, because of his SE or her SE. It wasn't the customer hijacking or trying to lead the meeting. It was the SE hijacking the call. So the SE did things without letting the AE know. And it goes beyond just like this meeting. For example, if the SE is working on a POC with a customer, the AE is usually aware. But if things are going badly and now the SE is escalating and doing things and working without telling the AE anything because they can handle it, which is true, but it might be the case that the customer is letting the people up their chain know. So let's say the AE is working with the VP of engineering, for example, or IT, and the SE is working on the proof of concept with the users. They're trying to implement integration and it's not working. The SE knows they can solve it. They just need some time, but now it's delaying the proof of concept, and the AE is not hearing anything, so they're assuming everything's going well because they're working on other things. But the VP then calls the AE and says, "Hey, nothing's working," and the AE has no idea what's going on. So they have to go back to the SE. Instead of being proactive, now they're reactive. And one thing that AEs hate more than anything else I've seen are surprises. Right? They don't want to be surprised that a POC is going badly. That's the kind of important information. Even if it's not going badly, if there's something wrong that happened, by the time the VP at the customer side knows, through, like, if you ever played telephone, it's gotten bigger. So instead of the AE knowing that, all right, this little thing happened and my SE solved it, and then when talking to the VP saying, "Oh, things are going horribly wrong," it's like, no, this is what's actually happened. It's under control. We're good. That's one way to deal with it. But if the AE doesn't know, then they can't deal with it. So I know, like, when I first joined this company, my AE covered a big territory, and I would be handling situations. I would be handling issues that we're having. And then all of a sudden, the customer, they see the issue one more time. Right? We didn't fix it yet. We just know that it's an issue. Our engineering team is working on it. But they see the issue one more time. And this time, they CC the salesperson, who was, by the way, the director of sales at the company. Even though everything is under control, he's panicking. He's calling me. "What's going on with this? Why aren't you telling me no this information ahead of time?" And there was a lot of friction between us. Not because I was fighting. It's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll handle it." No, it wasn't any of that. He was just surprised. So there was friction. I could tell that there's friction. And as soon as I started letting the AE know, as we're going through the situations, when I started copying him on the emails, just that, me copying the AE on the emails, changed things from the customer copying him on the emails. It makes the AE knows that I am handling it, and I'm not afraid. I'm letting him know about it ahead of time. I guess instead of saying doing things without informing the AE as the 6th thing that drives the AE crazy, surprises. That's what drives AEs crazy. Number 7 is interrupting customers. I think we all know that. We all do that. AEs do that. SEs do that. But when SEs do that, it drives AEs crazy. And when AEs do that, it drives SEs crazy. I think. So just interrupting customer is bad. Remember that rule. Don't interrupt customers. So let's move on to number 8 because we don't need to dwell on that. Number 8 is not listening to feedback. Right? SEs make mistakes, so do AEs. And when an SE, like a lot of AEs don't give feedback in general. Right? Like they're busy jumping on to the next call. The feedback they usually give, the way they give it, is by going to talk to the SE manager, or they tell their director, who then talks to the SE manager, who then talks to the SE, and now that's how the feedback is received, which is not great. But those few who actually give feedback, I know I've given feedback to AEs, to SEs, and all I hear back is defense. Like, oh no, this is not how we did it. No, this is not right. I don't agree with your assessment. Whatever. So there's one guy who I kept saying no to something. He was interrupting the customers all the time, actually, and I told him that. Like, no, actually, it's not like that. And a year later, we jumped. Like, he wasn't my SE. He was someone who helps out, and I gave him that feedback. A year later, we jumped on a call. He didn't interrupt the customer once. And after the call, he said, "Did you see? I didn't interrupt the customer once. Like, why did you fight me when I gave you that feedback? It made me not want to give you feedback for that entire year." Now, if he's my SE who doesn't receive feedback, I'd be way more angry than someone I use every once in a while to help me out with some things. So, whether you agree with the feedback or not, as an SE, just take it. Take it and analyze it and see what you can use with it. Not all feedback are created equal, and not all feedback is correct. But there might be a grain of truth in there. Like if you can take one thing to implement out of the feedback, that's better than arguing with the salesperson and saying, no, it's not. Actually, you're wrong. And that, because if you do that, they'll stop giving you feedback and they'll just complain to their management. And then when it comes down back to you, it'll be much worse than if you had just taken the feedback. Number 9, not updating your calendar. This drives me. This is my SE, actually. And we've had this conversation. We will continue to have this conversation. SEs complain about being double booked or triple booked by their AEs. They also complain about not having time to work on demo prep or anything like that. So what happens? AEs set up something on the SE. AEs set up something on the SE's calendar to meet with customers, and then the SE say, "No, sorry, I'm booked here, I'm booked there, and now, so I can't book anything using your calendar." That means I have to go to, like, I'm working on this thing. I need to book something with a customer right now, and I have to go ask you, "Hey, what time are you open?" And then go back to the customer and check, versus just looking at your calendar and bam, doing that. Now, like my SE specifically, he does a lot of work in terms of like supporting customers. Because they have an issue that he just sends them a Teams link and they jump on a call. Or they scheduled something for the next day. Not everything is on his calendar. Yeah. Calendar. Jeez. Not everything's on the SE's calendar. So I can't book anything. And if you, like, we're working on a demo, I could fill up his entire calendar with other things. And then when we jump on the demo, and he doesn't have time to prepare for it. Or he wouldn't have had time to prepare for it. So if you have a demo, put it on your calendar to prepare for the demo. If you're working on a proof of concept, put it in your calendar. If you're taking a customer out to lunch, put it on your calendar. Just if you have a doctor's appointment, put it on your calendar. Everything should go on your calendar. You should live by your calendar. Because if you don't, how will the AE be able to figure out when you're available? Even if it's on your calendar, AEs will double book you. So I'm not saying no. But if it's not, you really don't have an excuse not to show up to that call. Now, number 10 is zoning out. Now, most professionals don't do this, but I've worked with AEs who complain about their SEs zoning out when the conversation isn't related around technology. So what ends up happening is the AE is talking to the customer. There's a technical question that comes up. Instead of the SE jumping in and answering or asking their own questions, the SE is zoned out. They're looking at their phone. They're sending a link. They actually sent a LinkedIn invite to the customer in the middle of the call. Meeting in the office. Meeting. So instead of answering questions, they're sending that, or instead of asking their own questions, they're sending LinkedIn messages. So as SEs, we always have to be involved in the discussion because we need to understand the business problem in order to help solve through technology. Yes, we need to. There are technical things that we need to know, but if we don't understand the business problem, we're part of the sales team, which is a business oriented team. We're the CTO to the CEO. The CTO doesn't solve any problem. They solve a business problem that the CEO set. In this case, the CEO sets the business problem based on the customer discussion. So, as an SE, you're supposed to be listening to what the CEO, what the customer is saying, even if it's not related to technology, if it's related to business, if it's related to, I would like to go home early every once in a while. Now you can use that snippet in your demo or in your next discussion. So these are 10 things that SEs do that drive AEs crazy. If you're doing them, stop it. If you're looking for help, for coaching, check out the SE hotline. Message me. You can book my calendar from LinkedIn. There's a book a call or something. It's free. If you want to chat about anything, just do that. I think that's it. With that, I'm signing off.